Greetings, webheads, and welcome to episode 22 of Witty Banter, yet another Marvel Crisis Protocol podcast. I'm Patrick.
I'm Alex.
David.
I am a god, you dull creatures.
We are here to help you get better at and have more fun with your Crisis Protocol. Today's going to be a little bit of a scattershot episode. We got a few things we're going to go over, but before we do, we wanted to say thank you to a new patron who's joined us in the neighborhood. Derek England has gone to patreon.com/wittybantercast and has come in and is helping us out and is part of the community. So thanks, Derek. We really appreciate you being here. We hope you're enjoying the show, and we're anxious to hear some of your feedback. If you'd like to join Derek and become part of the neighborhood and give us some support and help us continue to produce this content for you guys, you can go to patreon.com/wittybantercast. For as little as $1 a month, you can provide some support for us. You can get priority questions answered. You can get priority dojoing of rosters. All kinds of benefits that you'll be able to see on the site. So we hope to see you all there. So the first thing we want to get to is some news. AMG's dropped a new character, has dropped Man-Thing. So we'll get into the cards specifically, but David, what was your first impression of Man-Thing? What do you think about him? What'd you first think when you read his card?
So he's a Midnight Sun and a Defender, right?
I think that's right.
Okay, so I mean, he's got a lot of things I like. The place is really good, and it's not. I mean, it's range 3. It's the character can be affected by more than you can use it more than once per turn. It's really good. I worry a little bit about his power generation because I mean he wants to be porting people. And his spender is, I mean, it's whatever for a 3 threat. It's fine. I mean, he's only slightly tankier than Black Panther, right? Like, I'm talking about Bass Panther, right? So I don't know. What do you guys think?
JP, what were your first impressions?
That port. That port's good. Obviously it's only friendlies, so it's not like a true scalpel, but it is range 3, so it's easier to operate than a scalpel. And it comes on a 3 threat, which, I mean,
Cheaper.
there's only 2 scalpel characters, and one of them can only do it once a turn, so, and the other one's a 5 threat.
Yeah, and we think he's on a medium base too, right?
He's a short mover on a medium base, but being affiliated Midnight Suns with a bump medium base, he's actually fine.
Well, and he can port himself. So
He can.
I mean, if he gets 3 power on me, he ports up and is just like, I'm gonna double builder and then just try to port whoever he has power to port. I mean, that's pretty good.
I mean, if he's spending his power to port himself a lot, it's kind of like a bad magic port because you can't scale it to power. You're just having to pay 3 all the time. Which isn't to say it's bad, but I feel like it's going to get most value porting other characters out of their own activations, either to like save them or having like a more immobile character or a character who got displaced just get right back into the fray of things. But like porting himself is like still really good.
Alex, what were your first impressions of Man-Thing? Other than
I I like the character card again. He's a 3 threat. People kind of have to like their expectations and their wants from a 3 threat. I've I've come to find are super high or super low with the expectations. I mean, he's a 3 threat. What he can do, I mean, it's pretty blatant in your face about what he does. He punches people and ports people. If he does more than that, he's fantastic. But overall, I think he's a fantastic character. The defensive tech of no exploding crits is great. Healing factor's awesome. Immunity, hex, and stun, great. I don't hate his spender. Auto incinerating poison's pretty good. Overall, I think he's pretty good. But what I really picked up from it, and one of our locals pointed it out to me, Logan pointed it out. We got kind of a glimpse of what Elsa's leadership is in this article.
I I did notice. I did notice that. Hang on to that. I'm gonna just for if you're
Sure.
listening to it in the car or at the gym or something. Let me run through the card real quick. He's 3/4, 6 health on his front, 5 on the back, 3 threat, size 3, moves short. He's got 2 attacks. First is physical attack, range 3, 5 dice, power equal to damage dealt on a wild hit. If the character is 3 or less, it can be pushed towards Man-Thing short. His spender is a range 3, 7 dice mystic attack, costs 3. After the attack's resolved, target gets incinerate and poison automatically. The port that we were talking about is the Guardian of the Nexus of All Realities. It's 3 power. Choose this character or another allied character within 3 and place the chosen character within 3 of its current position. A character can be affected by the superpower only once a turn. He has all who know fear burn at the Man-Thing's touch. After an attack was made by this character is resolved, or after an attack targeting this character is resolved, if damage was dealt and the enemy character is within 2 of this character, the enemy character gains the Incinerate special condition. So we talked a little bit about.
Can I add something to that?
Yeah,
that-
please do,
that
because I
last-
want to. We haven't. Go ahead.
So that last superpower, you can, the way his builder works, if you get the reel in, you can pull somebody into 2 and then auto incinerate them because of how the timing works. So I think that's pretty good.
Yeah, it. Well, I'll finish going. I'll finish going through the card before I get lost. His other innate is moss and mud and swamp. When this character is defending, enemy characters do not roll additional dice for crits in their attack rolls. He has healing factor 2, and he has immunity to hex and stun. He's the same on his back, except he has only 5 health instead of 6. So, I mean, his play pattern seems pretty obvious, but do you guys kind of want to talk a little bit about sort of how you envision him rolling through on the table, David? What if you were gonna pick Man-Thing up and play him? What do you think you'd be doing with him?
I mean, I think he has functionality in Midnight Suns, obviously. Siege is fine with him. The bump is really good. Using what is it, bats to force a lashing tendrils trigger might be worth it. Like if you need to get a push. I think his kit is cool. His place is good. I just worry about his fragility and his ability to generate power. Those are the 2 things. But like if you don't kill this guy, like if you go into him and you let him heal 2 and gain the 2 power off the damage, I mean that's like what he wants to be happening, right?
Yeah. JP, how about you? Any additional thoughts on kind of what you could see Man-Thing doing?
I think he wants to be fighting at range 2, even though he has a range 3 attacks. Just the fact that he can incinerate somebody if they damage him is kind of a big deal. So like free incinerate is good in my book. And also if he's punching them. I mean, obviously he has the reel in, but you might not hit the trigger at range 3, and then you're not getting the incinerate. Whereas if you make the attack at range 2, you don't get the reel in, you still get the incinerate. Obviously, the reel in's good to like maximize distance and maybe displace. If you're not just trying to like attrition. I mean, he's not really an attrition piece anyway, but incinerate definitely kind of helps him sort of fit in a little better into the makeup of an attrition list. Also, I don't think Midnight Suns have any affiliated incinerators besides Ghost Rider's Beam. I'm trying to think of something else that incinerates in that affiliation, and I am not thinking of it.
I think you're right. I think it's just Ghost Rider.
So he's like David was saying, the healing factor 2 is really cool. With the basically hexed attackers, because it really puts a cap on the spike potential of dice. So being, especially on his healthy side, having 6 health and not being able to crit into him, you do run the risk of not killing him, and then he activates and heals too, which is pretty good. Like healing factor 2 is, aside from X23 or sorry, Weapon X, he's got the best healing factor in the game, tied for. Also, anytime there's a 3 threat with an immunity, let alone 2, it's pretty good.
And
I
2
think,
uncommon immunities on top of that.
I mean, I think the hex is kind of whatever. Like, what's hexing right now? Like Encantu, Drac. I guess.
No, agreed. It's not a
No,
common
I'm not arguing
condition.
with you. This is just like my line. Like hex is
Fair.
like hex is fine. I'm glad it's on the card. I think the stun is really interesting. There's just a lot of random stun in the game. Like you're just looking like just random ass people have stun, like Iron Fist or like Beta Ray Bill. It's just like everywhere on cheap guys. Just like, oh, he's got a wild stun. Yeah. So like him having immune to stun is pretty cool, because I think he's the cheapest character now with immunity to stun. I can't think of another 3 threat that has it.
I think you're right, yeah.
So he's pretty good.
Oh, go ahead, Patrick.
He's a pretty good character to take for Fisk.
Yeah, I mean, the Fisk being able to like not get stunned and healing factor the damage is not nothing. And kind of speaking to the what we were saying earlier about him maybe have power issues. Like the immune stun kind of helps that if the other team has stun. Like he has more chances to gain power in the game. So yeah, I think he's interesting. The Reelin's interesting. The thing that I noticed about Man-Thing, looking at him in relation to Midnight Suns, is that there's a lot of Midnight Suns now that have kind of these weird innate superpowers that like cap the explosive nature of your opponent's dice. You've got Black Panther, who you can't mod. You've got Black Cat, who you can't explode or mod. And now you have Man-Thing, where you can't explode. They're all 3 threats. So I think that's kind of interesting. I don't know if there's an affiliation that has... Well, there is no affiliation that has anything like that. And then also the Reelin. The Reelin's kind of unique too. I don't think there's any character who has a push toward this cheap. It's kind of like a baton, but obviously the trigger's harder to hit. But being on a 3 threat, size 3, and it's 5 dice. Like usually the baton's 4. Obviously it's not as good as like a webline, but like who has webline? Like 4 characters, I guess. So like that in it's kind of interesting. He's in the same affiliation as Dr. Voodoo. So Dr. Voodoo has a double hit trigger to throw any direction, size 2, short, and Man Thing has a double trigger to push toward, size 3, short. So you have a lot of built-in trigger attacks that displace and kidnap. Like, it's not pushing them away. Like, you can bring them into your team and beat the shit out of them. So
Dice Calculator says that you should be hitting his reel and trigger about 40% of the time.
Okay. So that's not terrible. If he like bumps into attack range, double attacks, because a medium base bump is like over range 4.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a range 3 attack. So you bump in, you double tendrils, maybe hit the trigger, pull them. If you do it to a character who's activated already, they might be in trouble. Anyone who's played Thanos knows that it can get kind of dicey. And
you can incinerate them too.
That's true. And I mean, like, Midnight Suns can slap if you set him up right. Like Blade, he can punch. He's in every game. So, I mean, there's other like Bass. Bass hits hard for a 3. Obviously, Hulk, but I think he's cool. I like him.
David, you said that he was one of the concerns he was squishy. How much do you think his not blowing up crits? How much do you think that helps his survivability?
It's probably. I mean, obviously, it's better than nothing, right? It's. I mean, it's who else has it? Domino has it, right?
Yeah.
And Domino's kind of sometimes tanky. It's just like higher dice pools are probably just going to do damage, and the lower stuff is going to not be able to spike out. So like, I mean, he's also 3 physical, so like you could just throw shit at him. I mean, he's what, 6'5"?
Yeah, 6'5".
I mean, he's not the like squishiest 3, but he's also not the toughest 3.
Yeah, he's not a tank.
No, he's slightly more survivable than Gambit.
When he was originally spoiled, I thought he was going to be higher threat, tankier.
Yeah.
Just based on like the model, right? You see a big dude, you think tank. But I'm okay with this.
I do like the fact that we're not. I mean, I do think there's a risk of power creep in the game, and so it is nice to see AMG giving us lower threat characters that seem to be good but fair for their threat value. It's not a 2 threat, so I won't get on that hobby horse today. But it does seem like I do like seeing that we're not getting another 4 or another 5. I think it would be good for the game if we sort of refreshed our 3 threat arsenal a little bit.
Well, and like now, Midnight Suns, man, they got there's some quality 3s now, so like they could go wide if they wanted to. And I mean, the wider you go, there's more value out of siege, right? Because you're making more attacks.
Right. I don't know. I was reading this guy. Seems to me like Daredevil Defenders is a really good place for him. The Incinerate within 2 seems to fit right in with what Daredevil wants to do. You can pull him in. You can transport. You could teleport your guys in so that they're more better in range for the rerolls. I mean, I kind of feel like he might almost have a better home in Defenders than in Midnight Suns.
Being able to place him within range 3 is probably better in Suns because, like, obviously in in Defenders, obviously in Midnight Suns, he's got the bump, so
Right.
he has a cheap form of movement. Whereas, like, being able to place range 3, you can place him kind of where you want exactly and get within range 2 of a lot of characters for the rerolls. I do kind of like that. I think
Any other? Oh, yeah, go JP.
I think the Spender's probably worst thing on this card.
It's real. I mean, I think the only good thing about it is it's Mystic, but it's like okay.
I mean, it auto
Yeah.
incinerates, right? It's
Yeah.
fine.
I think
It's
it would.
and it's
I mean, but
Mystic.
If it was
he's
out of
probably
character
gonna
that
have people incinerated anyway. Like I don't know.
Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. It's range 3, so you can just reach
if it
out and
was
touch somebody with. It's just
if it was on a
I don't
character
know.
that could generate power better, I think it would be a better spender. But Man Thing seems to be so power hungry that I just can't imagine a circumstance. I mean, it'd have to be a pretty nichey circumstance to be going for that spender.
And it's the same power cost. So like
Right.
as the place, right? So like
Right.
I'd rather place something than make
Right.
that attack, right? Like it just doesn't
Right.
make.
Yeah, I think he's gonna reward uh good gameplay with the place,
Oh
but
yeah.
he's definitely not. He doesn't translate power to damage.
No.
So I could. I mean, he's definitely a utility piece with the displacement, the incinerates, and the teleports.
Right.
I think it might get weird, but I don't know. Maybe if you're playing scenario, it's fine. It's probably fine there, but Midnight Suns just it's like a mid-range team, so they kind of want to be able to punch too. Maybe you just bring him, do more scenario. I don't know. He's weird. Like I'm just thinking if you put him on the table in the same game as Cat, say, now you have 6 threat that's but it might be fine. Like incinerate's cool. And I think you are incentivized in Midnight Suns to go affiliated more than other affiliations. Just
Oh
'cause,
yeah.
I mean, Siege is so good.
Right.
Even if it's like if you siege this guy after he activates and he reels somebody off a point, pretty good. Having just out of activation displacement is not bad.
Uh, David, any other thoughts on Man Thing? Before we get to his brain bending tactics card.
I do have to shout out that I do like him in Convocation because he's 4 Mystic
Here's your shot.
I've already got my bourbon.
and he can use the reactive place to get in range 2 to incinerate somebody.
No, I think you're. I find no fault in that. Alex, how about you? Any closing thoughts on the card before we move to his tactics card?
No, you guys honestly covered every thought that I had about it. I personally think he'll have a better home in Defenders, like you said. Don't get me wrong, he seems great in Midnight Suns, and until we get a real idea of what else his leadership is,
Yeah.
I think Daredevil Defenders is more of a home for him than
Yeah.
Midnight Suns.
Yeah, Daredevil Defenders on playing Fiskon Defenders seems to be the first thing I'd think to do with him. Okay, so his tactics card is Dimensional Quagmire. It is an unaffiliated reactive card. During the power phase, an allied Man-Thing can spend 2 to play the card. While this character is not dazed until the end of the round, once per turn, the first time each turn an enemy character begins a movement within 3 of Man-Thing and ends that movement not within 3, roll a die. If the result is a hit, crit, or wild, place the enemy character within 3 of Man-Thing. JP, what does it all mean?
it asks the question to your opponent: do you want to flip a coin? And if you do, then you just need to know that if you lose, you're going to be teleported, possibly like range 7.
Yeah. Which is pretty nuts.
Well, and it also, I mean, I mean, I suppose that's why they call it a quagmire, but you can, for a round, just at least threaten your opponent to say, yeah, all these models you have on this side of the board, you're not moving them. You're not rotating.
Maybe not all of them, but it forces them to consider attacking him.
Right.
Like I would say it's probably, I don't know. It's a weird card. Like anytime there's a coin flip involved in a card where it either does something fantastic or nothing,
Right.
is like it's kind of playing chicken, right? Like
Right.
you're playing the card, so you're taking one of your 5 to maybe do nothing, but also if your opponent chooses to push the envelope and like risk it, like they could be severely punished for it. So I think maybe it's probably better into better players, but the other issue is it takes one of your 5, and I think especially in Midnight Suns, their 5 are tight.
Why do
Especially
you
if they're running Hulk.
why do you say it's better into better players?
Because I don't think they're gonna want to take a risk. Like they're
Oh.
not gonna want to gamble on a chance. They're gonna want to be able to have agency over what's happening rather than just like rolling a die and seeing if they get fucked. Right.
So
So like
you're saying the card might be able to affect an opponent's behavior even without it being played.
that. Well, no, not without it being played, but
Oh, I suppose
like
that's true. You'd have to play it. That's true. You're right.
like once you play it, I think you're gonna make a better player think more about what they're doing.
Right.
Whereas a worse player could be like, YOLO, move, not get punished. Now you're down a card. Like, fuck. This sucks. But you
Well,
might make a better player go into the tank and actually be like, well, I'm not going to even risk that. Let's attack Man Thing. So you're giving him like a pseudo taunt
Right.
/ bear hug. Like, this is what maybe bear hug should have been.
Hmm.
well, and keep in mind that you can trigger this yourself. So if you
Yeah,
push
that's
somebody
true.
outside of 3 or like throw them outside of 3, then you can just like yeet their ass wherever the fuck you want them.
That's one thing I didn't look at.
Yeah, that's true.
Is it, can he do it? Can he play the card out of activation?
It's
Oh, it's during the power
unaffiliated.
phase.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
during
Okay.
yeah,
power
it's in the
phase.
power phase.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's
Ooh.
actually kind of cool. You
Yeah.
can. Yeah. You can if you're really good at positioning, you could use it to basically port somebody like range 4 or 5 essentially. Something like that.
It's pretty good.
If you're at like the
England.
very edge of Man Thing's range, you throw them toward Man Thing or push them toward Man Thing. And that doesn't even like kill the card, right? It's still active.
A whole round.
And they started like if you flip them to the other side of Man Thing range 3, now they're like way far away, and then they
Yeah.
still have to make the decision like, okay, do I move now? And like it really punishes range 2 characters too.
Mhm.
Like if they have no way of affecting Man Thing at range 3, then I do like that. Power phase, activating somebody else, triggering it, placing range 3 of Man Thing, like the best angle you can to fuck with them. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Alex, what do you
Is it-
think of the card?
Is it 3 power or 2 power?
It's 2.
2? Okay.
I like it. I just the only problem I really have with it again is just kind of the problem with Man Thing. It's power generation being an issue. And like JP said, it's a 50-50, it's a coin flip, so it's, I mean, if you get it once, it was worth it, depending on what you can do with it, but it also gives them the opportunity to pass out more incinerates if needed.
Okay. Any closing thoughts on Man Thing and his card? Kind of now that we've talked through some of it before we move on, David. Anything else you want to say about Swamp Boy?
I mean, he looks fun. I would try him, right? See how what do you think of him?
Model's super cool too. JP, how about you?
If I pick up Suns again, I'll probably try him out.
Alex?
He seems neat. I like him for a 3-threat. He's not over the top, but not a waste of time for a 3-threat. I like him.
Oh, before we move on from him too, we did in the panel to play, there was at least a little bit of suggestion about, or of a hint in terms of what Elsa's leadership is going to be. Alex, do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, sure can. So in the panel to play, there's a specific highlight talking about his builder. His basic lashing tendrils attack serves to generate power like many characters' first attack, but with luck, he will also draw his enemies toward him with a pull. Under Elsa Bloodstone as his leader, this pull can enable additional damage to nearby enemies. So I'm thinking this leadership is a traps of some sort. It's based on the wording there. The traps, it's a traps based off of enemies moving, but it hurts other enemies and not the enemy that got moved. That's my speculation.
What's the
That'll
eh,
be interesting.
I know. I'm drawing a blank. Wasn't there a leadership recently that came out that you could hurt someone with pushes?
Panther.
Yeah,
That's right.
King
That's right.
Panther.
Which
So do we,
I think 0 people play on the planet.
Yeah, nobody knows that leadership.
there's a
Yeah.
reason I couldn't remember it.
Yeah,
If it-
it's not a
if it-
super common leadership
it
whatsoever.
was-
And it's just,
If it was limited to once per turn, I think it would be good.
Yeah, then you could actually build around it.
But like it's not good.
I mean,
Well,
when Mbaku exists, why would you take Panther's leadership?
right.
Like Mbaku's just a fucking brick shit house with a good leadership. Like you're not playing Wakanda without Mbaku, and then like why the fuck would you not take his leadership? So
All right. Well, webheads, let us know what you think of Man Thing. If the thing from the swamp is something that you're looking forward to be playing or not. So we're gonna move on. We would like to have a little bit of a discussion. We talked about doing this at the start of the podcast. We never quite have gotten around to it, and we thought today or this episode would be a good time to talk about characters that we like that really don't see much table time that we think deserve more love than they get. So we're each going to kind of go around and stump for our particular our particular character. Alex, who are you thinking deserves more playing time than they get? Who deserves to be seen more than they're seen?
well, I had to narrow it down to from the two that I thought about, and I really wish I saw Venom get played more. That includes myself. He's one of my favorite characters. He's one of the few characters since the game came out, because he was like
I want to say he was the second or third release because he came out, I think, with Wakandans.
Yeah, because Miles and Gwen were supposed to come out at the same time.
Yep, that's right.
Yep. So, I mean, he was one of the first releases to come out, and he is yet to change, somewhat in a good way, but also a bad way. I think more good, because it goes to show, like, overall, for a character, he seems somewhat balanced for what he is and what he can do. He's got a lot of good things to him. His physical defense, great. His health pool's great. He's doesn't allow dice modifications. Overall, he seems like a super solid character. He's got two ways of manipulating in his turn. He's got the pull and then the throw. He's got his energy defense is kind of low and he's slow, but with the clapbacks, We Are Venom, I just think he's a great character. I need to put him on the table more myself, and I just wish I saw him get played more because he's a super solid 4 threat.
That
And-
pull of his is bananas.
It's the best
any
pull in the
size-
game.
And pulling any size medium is insane. Like, that's so much distance.
Well, and you don't need line of sight.
Yeah, it's really good.
You know what fucks
Well-
Venom? His affiliation.
Yeah.
That's true.
He's in
got
one
2.
affiliation. Oh, yeah, you're
Well,
right. He's in Spider Foes. Like Web Warriors don't they like value mobility overall?
Right.
So he's kind of an odd man there. And then Spider Foes have such a stacked force slot that, I mean, I don't know. He's fine, but goddamn, like they have 2 leaders and Rhino that are already 4s. Like how many fucking 4s do you want?
Oh, that affiliation's nothing but 4s, it seems like, with a couple of 3s splashed in. I agree. It's probably his affiliations that are preventing him from getting played, not because he's bad, but
would
they're
say-
just not good affiliations for him.
I would say secondarily his movement speed.
Yeah.
If he was a medium mover, he might get played in webs actually.
Well, I think the other thing, I mean, there was a point in time when Venom was like the best character in the game.
The dude
I
slaps.
think- Yeah, I
He's
think
good.
over time, I think there's just been more like long range energy attackers have come into the game and they're more prominent. So it just makes him feel sad when he's getting like pelted at range 4 and he can't do anything about it.
He wets his Venom suit at the site of Guardians, and they were reigning for a long time. So
Yeah,
any thought of Venom got put on the back
that really
burner.
hurt his playability.
But I mean, you can like you might be able to do some cute things with like thralls, with like a clapback team. I don't know if it's good, but like you don't have to be affiliated, so he doesn't get trapped with his affiliation list, and you can kind of build
Venom
around it.
Venom with Mephisto's ability to bring people up to take an attack is kind of interesting too.
Yeah.
I do like that.
All right. David, how about you? Who's your character that you think deserves more love than they get?
It's definitely got to be Invincible Iron Man. So I drafted the guy in our league, and I'd been playing him in Shield, and I was like, oh yeah, he's fine in Shield. He does the Shield thing, and then I started playing him in like X-Men, and I'm like, oh my god, this guy is ridiculous. Like, he's got damage reduction. Like, I mean, he's almost as tanky as Bill. His attack suite is great. Like his any size push is like stupid. Stupid. You have a range for any size push, 5 dice wild. Like, it's stupid. Like, so good. He just like he just does a lot of things. He has like a good toolkit, and I mean he's tankier than people give him credit for. And they'll like put a bunch of tax into him, and they'll be like, "Oh, well that didn't go as planned it to go." And then now he's like fistful of dollarsing back onto the point and like throwing you off with his like medium throw. And Jarvis is actually better than I thought it was initially. Like it's pretty good. I mean, he's like a beefier Shuri, right?
He also has access to 2 pretty good tactics cards, right?
Yeah. Helios is. I mean, it's Helios, right? I think Helios might actually be something that might start cropping back up because now we're starting to get characters that you want to like finger of God to death, like Dracula or Apocalypse, like any of these characters that you don't want, like, or Thor or something like that, something where you don't want to get their like wrath, you just want to get them off the table. Like, it might be worth bringing back. Fear the finger of God.
And if you said this already, I apologize. He also seems to kind of fit in with the doubling up the reroll plays that people want to see with Zemo and everybody else that's around. He seems to fit right in with that kind of a play style.
I think David was using them to pretty good effect with Professor X getting the Venn diagram reroll areas.
It's really stupid. So
Invincible Iron Man and Sentinel Prime. Let's go.
I mean, that's a lot of rerolls.
It's a lot of rerolls.
Well, and it starts becoming a feedback mechanism, right? Like it's like I'm going to reroll your dice so that you're going to generate more power to reroll my dice, so I'm going to generate more power.
For Chuck specifically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, JP, how about you? Who's your character that deserves more love than they get?
I actually had to go in the tank on this one. I had to flip through all of MCPDB and figure something out because I feel like, for the most part, characters who should get play are getting play. But I picked Ant-Man, and I am by no means an Ant-Man stan. I had never put him on the table until our draft league, and I haven't put him on the table since. But, and it's a big but, this guy fucks.
He's really fun. I will have to say Ant-Man is one of my, like, I really, really like Ant-Man's play pattern. It's like just so much fun. That you can move.
If there's a character that feels like you're playing the character you see in the movie, I think it's Ant-Man.
Yeah, he is. He's so fucking cool.
Yeah,
He has one of the coolest character cards in the game, I feel.
Hypermobility round 1. And here's the big and. Well, I mean, ant size uppercut is great. 6 die attack on a 3 threat. Like, what do we have in comparison? Scourge?
Yeah, that's it.
Is that it?
That's it.
Yeah,
I think
but
so.
Scourge is a gainer. It's not even a builder.
True, right. But Devil's Advocate ant size uppercut transforms you into normal. So, like, unless you're starting within range 1, uppercutting, going normal, change size, uppercutting again, you're only getting 1 attack. But fucking Bullet Ant Barrage is insane. A 7 dice beam on a 3 threat. It is dumb, and it gives conditions, including stun. It is dumb. I bent so many people over with Bullet Ant Barrage.
Yeah,
when I had him on the table. It was insane.
It fucks with Asgard hard.
Yeah.
And when I was running Avengers like competitively, I was running Ant-Man with Sam. Like I think Ant-Man like has a place there, I think.
just weird because I view him. I mean, I don't. This isn't the hot take or anything, but he's more of an attrition piece than a scenario piece, and
Agreed.
I feel like a 3-threat attrition piece is just kind of awkward, and especially in Avengers because they're usually trying to do some sort of scenario play.
I don't know. He can get from point to point pretty well.
Yeah, I was like
Yeah.
on a pay to put or something. Like
Sh-
Yeah.
Sure, on contests, but
Right.
like for extracts, it just gets awkward. Like,
Yeah.
okay, I've got Ant-Man. I beat the shit out of you. You drop your extract. I guess I'll pick it up, but like now I'm cutting off half my kit.
I don't understand why his transform doesn't let him keep a hold of extracts. Like in the comics and the way the actual character worked, Pym particles worked on everything, other people included. So it doesn't make sense why he has to drop his extracts. It makes no
balance.
sense.
Yeah, I agree.
They literally put a building into a briefcase.
Yeah. It makes no sense.
The tiny superhero is kind of cool though. Like he can't hold objectives, but he gets basically ASM's reroll. He can reroll any number of defense or dodge.
Yep.
Like his
And
dice
so-
pools are a lot smaller than ASM. He's only 3-2-3 instead of 4-4-3. But
Is he
being able to
3-2-3? I
reroll.
thought he was 3-2-2.
No, he's
I
3-2-3. I'm looking at his card.
Okay.
So I mean, it's cool. Like I found myself personally in the small amount of games I played with him getting skull locked or success locked, to where I wasn't really re-rolling a ton, but just having access to re-rolls on defense and dodge is pretty freaking good. Like it makes him tankier than you would think a 5 health 3-threat would be.
Well, and you can also when you reactively like if you get attacked and you reactively transform, you can transform into cover and you can get cover for that attack.
Yeah. Yeah, you can. I mean, he's good. He's good. I like him. That beam is just a beast. I don't.
It's really
Is
good.
there any? Is there? I don't think there's any 3-threat that has a 7 dice beam. Can you guys think of anything? There's no
Well,
way.
Beam?
The other
Is
thing
there
about
is there a
his
4-threat with the 7 dice beam? I guess
yeah,
Cyclops.
What's Vision's beam?
It's 5.
Is it 5?
AV's beam, Logan's
Oh yeah,
beam,
AV. Oh, AV's beam's so good. Who's
Yeah.
up? Who else?
Logan's beam.
Oh,
Isn't it
yeah, that one's really good too. So I mean, he does start getting overshadowed in 4-threat, but like 3-threat, this man stands alone.
Well, and like the ability to like place up, punch something, and then pull enough power to beam, because the beam is what, four power?
Yeah, it's 4.
So
Which
the
is
ability
kind of
like
standard. Like they didn't overprice it on
No,
the 3. Like AV's is a 4, Logan's is a 4. I mean, this guy is he definitely punches way above his weight class.
well, and I like the ability to like you can also like place him and then place him again to like line up the beam because he transforms big. So
Yeah, that's true.
it can get kind of cool. He can do some cool shit. Sure.
Yeah, like, well, Chain Size basically gets you a range 1 port, and then Hitch a Ride gives you a range 3 port,
Yep.
and then you can punch, and you get a range 1 port, and then you Bullet Ant Barrage, so you can literally hop across the table, line up a perfect beam, punch, and beam, and it just feels really good.
Well, and none of his like movement takes like his place is free. So like
Yeah,
he
it's
doesn't even
insane.
spend power to do. Yeah. Which is like really
Patrick, what is your pick?
So my pick, as with most good things, came out of a dare. I happened to stumble across a Sin and Viper box for like $10 at a gaming store up in Sioux City, and
Still too much.
see, that was it. So all jacked up, and I posted on our group chat that I got this for $10, and I was told that I spent $10 too much. And this was right when we were getting ready to do our draft league. And so I made a big deal that not only am I going to buy this, but we drafted 10 characters. I said, my 10th character I'm going to draft is going to be Viper. So amazingly enough, nobody took Viper in the original 9 rounds before that. So I ended up taking her, and I played her throughout the draft league. And I was kind of pleasantly surprised. She plays like a beefed up 2-threat original core widow. She's got a long move. She can pay 2 to displace herself. She's got stealth. She's got a martial artist, and she's got a 3-cost spender that lets her place within one of the targets. She can get around the board with her stealth and her martial artist. She can at least somewhat stay alive. Certainly can stay alive better than 2-threat widow. So I, as an objective runner that has a little bit of a punch and a lot of displacement, I was pleasantly surprised how much work Viper did.
I have not ever put her on the table, so I can't. I don't have any anecdotal comments here.
So I think what kills Viper is her affiliations. I just
Yeah.
think she just it's like I mean I guess she's fine in Hydra, but like and she's in what, Cabal?
She's in
And
Cabal and Hydra, and I mean, she kind of gets lost in Cabal.
yeah, like if she was Criminal Syndicate,
Mm-hmm.
she might have some play there, right? Like she could be good with Kingpin.
She'd be real good with Kingpin.
Or like if she was a web or something random, like she'd be pretty good in webs. Like I just don't her affiliations just crush her. And I wish her stupid pistol did something. It just seems so useless.
The only advantage to the pistol is if it's a gainer. So if you know you need a power for something, whether it's either displacement ring or something like that, it is nice to have that. But yeah, especially since it's only range 3.
If
I
that
guess
thing
She
if
should have
that
been
thing
rapid
was
fire.
rapid if that thing
yes,
was
Rapid fire. That's
like
exactly what I was gonna say.
it would have to be hit rapid fire though. But yeah. I don't think you
I
give her
mean,
auto.
yeah, I
No,
know.
yeah, it would have to have a hit trigger, just like most rapid fires. But if it had rapid fire, I would not complain. Honestly, I think that's all she really needs.
I
Because
totally,
again,
I agree 100%.
Yeah, I mean,
she's one of those random characters that hands out stun because that pistol hands out stun.
her spender hands out slow and stun too. So
Yeah.
she spits out condition. Her builder gives poison. And then the gainer does stun, and then the spender does slow and stun. So I don't know. I was, after being prepared to have an utter 3-threat anchor dragging around, using her as an objective runner was surprisingly not terrible. And I'm fiddling with having a Dracula list that can slip over, that can do a Cabal, and I kind of toyed with the idea of Viper as my 10th character.
I mean, long moves on a 3-threat are still good. I mean, they're good. Like that's a long move is good. Like
Yeah, and then when she's got stealth on top of it, she grabs an extract, she long moves away, she long moves away again, she displacement rings away, and then you got to be within 3 of her to go do anything.
So how hard can I laugh in Black Cat right now?
yeah, that's the problem.
I I got nothing on that one.
I think it's just so Black Cat, yeah, she fucking has marshmallow fists, but the spender is just stupid. You
Yeah.
look at Viper's card and she flicks her bean.
Well, and that goes
Like,
back to what I was saying about
she's
her
got
affiliation
nothing.
kills her, right? Because it's like if you're taking her as a splash character, then it's like you could have Cat.
Yeah.
Cat's just better.
Yeah.
Like there's no point in taking her as a splash character. So like her affiliations have to mean something, and I don't like they just don't.
Yeah.
Like,
No,
I, I think she just needs rapid fire. Take off stun, give her rapid fire, and then maybe I don't know. Maybe
I don't know. Make that her shtick. Make that her thing. Maybe her rapid fire also gives stun.
Maybe.
Like, I mean, look at Black Cat.
I mean,
She
she
spends.
wouldn't be OP. That's for sure.
That's
No.
what I'm saying. Yeah,
It'd be
like,
fine.
would it really
It'd be
make
fine.
her OP if you get 4 shots and well, you're only going to be able to give stun once because you can't give a condition multiple times.
How hard can I laugh in Apocalypse right now?
Viper versus Apocalypse. It's on.
No, Viper on Apocalypse team with remade through me or whatever the fuck it's called.
yeah. Oh, you got stunned again? Well, here's your incinerate. Oh, and then you got stunned again. Oh, here's your shock.
Here
And
we
let's
go.
throw a bleed in there too while we're at it.
Okay, well, so that's just we'd been wanting to do that for a while. We'll probably revisit this every once in a while just to kind of think through, get you kind of thinking about characters that haven't seen some playing time and probably deserve it. So if you guys webheads, if there's characters that you think don't get the love that they deserve, let us know. You can hit us up on all the socials, Witty Banter Cast, and we'd really like to hear some other thoughts in terms of who should be seeing more playtime. We are going to finish things up with a little bit of a different take on things. We tend to be pretty crunchy around here. And so we thought we'd take just a little bit of time to talk about the hobby side of things. Well, obviously we all enjoy the game. We all enjoy the strategy. All enjoy the thinking about it. But there's a hobby aspect to it too. So I thought it would be a good opportunity to just give everybody an opportunity to discuss what their thought process is when they start putting paint on things, how they do it, and kind of what they get out of it. JP, you're really good at this, so you're gonna go last. David, how do you approach the hobby aspect of the game of what we do?
I mean, I really like assembling models, and I sometimes I haven't done it as much as I did in other hobbies. I do like doing conversions of stuff. Maybe I start to get back to that and start coming up with conversions for stuff. I hadn't really thought about it. But I mean, there was a time when I played Warhammer that I had like a whole Catachan army that had their own trees that came with them. So, uh, I mean, I like that part of the hobby, and I mean, painting it gives me a nice time to like kind of tune everything out that's going on in the world and everything, and just kind of, oh, I'm gonna focus on painting this little guy right now instead of you know everything that's going on. So, I mean, that's what I get out of it.
What's your go-to technique? When you're what's the most used technique that you find that you're using to get things done?
What do you mean, like?
Like, are you a spade paint guy? Do you use kind of standard acrylics? Do you slap
Uh,
chop? Or,
I I've been using the what is it, two thin coats? That
yeah.
those paints are pretty good. I like them a lot. You use the monument ones, right, Alex? Are they any good?
Yeah, I use Monument Hobbies now. I mean, with a couple of Army Painters or Vallejos here and there, just because of I'm not able to find colors in Monument Hobbies color range yet. Or there's a couple of GW paints I use too, like some of their contrasts and some of their washes.
I will say one other thing on the hobby side of things. If you're not using a wet palette, get a wet palette. Like, there's like literally no reason to not have a wet palette. Like, they're so good. Like, get a wet palette.
Cue
It's
the
so
Jeff
much easier.
soundbite.
Yeah. Yeah.
How about you, Alex? Why how important to you is the hobbying side of the game?
Well, personally, the hobby side to it, I think, is just as important as the game, because it is a hobby. Like this is a hobby, but it's also a game mixed with the hobby. You can do one without the other. It's it's your prerogative. What you want to do with it is it's your money and your hobby, but it is a hobby, and I think the hobby aspect to it is just as important as the game aspect. Personally, I would love to have tournaments that require painting, but with those requirements, it also takes some people out of it because they just don't want to paint their stuff, which is fine. But yeah, I think painting personally is just as important as the game itself. It
Uh,
shows
I
that
will say,
you are
Alex.
also do what?
I said I will say, Alex, as a TO, you could, if we started, if we started like streaming tables, you could be like everybody needs to have painted models because they might end up on the stream table.
I could, but then again, it's the situation I've had with previous tournaments, like trying to enforce a painting requirement. It's like, well, I'll get people that have reached out. It's like it just turns people off from wanting to come out because their stuff's not painted. I'm like, I'm not even asking for you know even tabletop standard. What I'm asking is 3 colors. Like it's not. I don't even think I'm asking that much, but we've had this conversation many times locally, and I just cannot seem to get it to go through.
Yeah.
But and I want to as a TO, Alex, too. I want to put a spotlight on some of the stuff. You have painted a metric fuck ton of terrain, and it all looks really good.
Thank you, thank you.
You've got the Wakandan table looks amazing. The Apocalypse table looks amazing. The Asgard table that you've done looks amazing. That's a lot of terrain. And when I really first started getting back into hobbying, terrain was the most soul destroying thing that I work on. So how do you approach being able to get a large amount of terrain painted without jabbing a paintbrush through your eyeball?
Well, I will admit I'm in that same boat as you. I cannot stand painting terrain. Can't stand it. Just because it's most of it is the exact same stuff over and over and over again. That's why, like the city terrain, I haven't touched a piece of city terrain to paint it in over a year, if not longer. I hate painting the city terrain because it's all the same stuff. But what really motivates me to get it done is getting it done, so I don't have to look at it gray anymore. The like my biggest bane right now is still that terrible cosmic terrain. It still needs to be finished, and I hate looking at it, but I just cannot get myself to finish it. It looks so terrible.
And
But the other terrain sets they've come out with have been luckily very easy with what I can make it look like and make it look good on like a tabletop standard. and a lot of it is luckily dry brush work. It's all a good chunk of dry brush.
Well, and I will say that like seeing painted models on a painted table, like with terrain that's painted on a good mat, it's it's very it'll draw people to like come up and look at the tables and be like, "Oh, what are you guys playing?" So like
Agreed.
I think
And it makes it a very immersive situation too, I feel.
yeah, I think it can attract like if you're trying to like if listeners out there are like trying to build a community to play MCP, right? Like I think that's where you start because you can get the hobby side and it just attracts more people to want to play and be like, "Hey, what's this?" and then start playing.
Agreed. Yep, I like that. That's a good point.
Yeah. Yeah, the hobby side was really what brought me in much more than the actual gaming side. I what I do for a living, I think is fair to say is somewhat high stress, and it's all left brain stuff. It's all, thinking and logic and analytical stuff. And a right-brained activity like painting, what I have found is it just all of the all of the over functioning left brain part that you get stuck with at work, once you get into your right brain, at least for me, once you get into your right brain and you're accessing, your creativity and your spatial awareness and your color theory, it just lets that part of your brain relax. And I I've had 6 hours disappear when I've been painting, and I look up and I went, how did that happen? It's
Yeah.
it is just it is one of the healthiest self-care things I think that I can do. And it's such a feeling of satisfaction to get a model done, particularly model. One of the things that drew me to Marvel was just a huge Marvel nerd, and I have a lot of connection to these characters. And so, if I generate a Star Lord, and there's plenty of other Star Lords out there that look amazing, but comparisons to Thief of Joy, and this is my Star Lord, and I'm really happy with him, and it gives me that sense of accomplishment to see that. And then to see a model that I finished last week and then compare it to a model that I did 2 years ago, and you can see the improvement in technique and in some of the things that I've been doing. um that's very satisfying. It's one of the things that really kind of keeps me coming back for more. One of the things I have found really helpful and useful is to have a community that you're hobbying with. So, for example, I bought when I'm a contrast paint guy. Contrast paint was a game changer for me, and it helped me get things moving faster. But I think it's fair to say I overuse them, and I use them as a crutch. So I bought a Immortal Hulk, and literally you guys bullied me out of using contrast paint to be able to get him put together.
You little
So
bitch.
you did. I mean, there's no question about it. And so I ended up doing a more traditional layering approach using shadows and highlights and working to build values up. And he's my favorite model. He's the best thing that I've done. If somebody wants to come and say, "Oh, you pay," let's see what you do. Usually, he's one of the first. He'll be the first one I pull out. So, and that never would have happened if I didn't have people that I hobbied with that pushed me, that didn't let me just settle for what I was doing. So I think
Yeah, we
having having a community around you that you can look at and get ideas from, and to help you get better, it really makes the hobby it just makes it a lot more satisfying and a lot more useful for me.
Now, we do want to specify too, when we bullied Patrick, so be it, we did kind of bully him, and I can admit that. But it's not a matter of bullying him because we think contrast and speed paints are worse quality or a worse way of painting. We just give each other shit in the community. That's what we do. But what I'm trying to get at is whatever works for you works for you. It is not a knock on anybody for using a specific type of technique or paints. Whatever works for you, stick with it. And if you want to move away, don't be afraid to take that plunge.
And when we pantsed Patrick, we let him keep the tidy whities.
That's
we
true. It's a good group of guys. What can I say? And look, I'm still use contrast paints. I think they're still really valuable tools, but I just feel like I've increased my skill level, where instead of just that's how you paint is you use speed paints to paint by numbers. Now it's a tool that I can use with everything else and make conscious decisions in terms of, all right, I'm going to use speed paints for this, and then I'm going to use acrylics for this, and I'm going to airbrush this. It's just it broadens your arsenal as an artist to be able to make better decisions. And I mean, then the decision making process itself is kind of one of the things that's fun about the hobbying. Is you look at a model and you kind of stare at the gray for a while and think, what the fuck am I going to do with this thing?
Yeah, currently I've got Angel and Sunspot on the table, and Sunspot, I'm having that decision making process with all the fire on him.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna do the same technique I did that came from Monument Hobbies. I did that for the Asgard, or no, uh, it was the Apocalypse of Terrain. I did that technique with on the little bits of torches
Yep.
they had. But I think I'm gonna do that same technique, and it'll be interesting to get the different angles of the fires with that technique. And then I got to figure out how to freehand Angel's halo on his chest because it wasn't molded that way.
It that that my angel halo is about take 19.
Yeah, that's what I'm expecting on my end too.
All right, JP, you're kind of the pro of the group. Let's um, describe your process, because you really devote a lot of time to the art that you generate. So just kind of talk through what your process is. How do you get from here's this gray model to here's what I feel comfortable with saying that I'm done with it?
Pro might be an overstatement, but I appreciate that, Patrick. So I'm a few drinks in now, and I didn't have anything prepared, so like my thoughts on this are going to be kind of scattered. So if you can prompt me, that'd be appreciated.
Okay.
Let's see. I think so. Hot take up front. I think painting models is more technical than artistic. I've said that for a while, but
So what do you mean by that?
So, like, I think that, I mean, aside from color theory, so if you are an artist and you know about color theory, you can make some cool shit with the colors. But technically speaking, like the thing is already there. You don't have to create something out of your imagination. You have to technically apply paint to make this thing look better than it already is. So, I would compare it more to something like a trade, maybe like carpentry or drywall or something, where you have like a specific task that you have to do, and you kind of know how to do it, but it all rests on the technical execution of it. It's not like an architect where you have to imagine the building. You're the carpenter who has to build it. So the better you are technically at painting, like that kind of defines who you are as a painter. Unless you're making some kind of like weird ass like Monet looking mini where you're just like being all fucking artistic and trying to be like impressionistic on this thing. Like you're probably you're going for the most
Picasso.
Yeah, I mean you're going for the most technically executed mini you can. So it comes down to more of a like a technical skill set and muscle memory type thing. And the more you can repeat the processes, the more like the better you get at it. Like you, so I to take it a step further, I think that if you took really good mini painters and asked them to draw on paper something from like just give them like something to like a topic or a some kind of description to draw from, I'd say probably half of them would come up with like kind of some generic, maybe like bad looking drawing because like they're not artists per se, and that's not to take anything away from them, but they're like technicians, right? They are just really good at technically applying paint to make this already existing thing look cool. And
that's
that
a
is
good
a
point.
skill. That's a skill in itself. I'm not taking anything away because like there's just some fantastic painters that I'll never be as good as, and it is what it is. But it's a technical execution.
Yeah, I can back you up with that analogy that you put there because I'm not the best painter in the world either, but I don't think I'm terrible. But if you ask me to draw anything that's not a shitty drawing, good luck. It'll never happen. I am not an artist like that.
And I
Okay,
think that. Oh, go ahead, Patrick.
so I'm going to push back a little bit on that because I think at some level all forms of artistic expression are technical abilities. I mean, I, I think you could say in a lot of ways the same thing about a sculptor or I guess there's a whole bunch of different media. I think that's right.
Media. Yeah.
I think I see what you're saying in the sense that miniature painters probably tend to have a really specific skill set, but at least the way it's been my experience that there's a whole lot of creativity that comes from trying to, I mean, in a certain sense, a lot of what you're doing is you're creating illusions on the miniature. You're creating depth where there really isn't depth. You're non-metallic metal. You're creating something that looks like metal that isn't metal. And you have to be able to envision the way that's going to look and the way that's going to read, and use that creative process to generate that, to sort of translate that idea onto a very small piece of plastic. So I mean, I think there's a lot of technical skill to it, but I don't know that necessarily diminishes the artistic expression of it, if that makes sense.
I mean, we can get into a semantic argument about it, and I would probably agree with you. I would concede a semantic argument,
You're-
like probably
you're-
already immediate, like
You're
instantly.
you're saying that I would get into a semantic argument. What would possibly lead you to that conclusion?
I mean, if you want to say like a drywaller, like floating out a seam like for 2 feet and making it like a seamless transition is artistic, that's fine. Like it takes a ton of skill. If you want to call it art, whatever. Like if you fucking duct tape a banana on a wall, it's art. I mean, like I don't have really like a foot to stand on here, but like it's at the end of the day, it's mostly technical. In my opinion, it's mostly technical execution and having a toolkit. Very little of it is actually creativity. You could make an argument once you get into like the hobby aspect of it, like when you're like when you get into green stuff work. Now you're sculpting. Now you're making something from nothing.
I was just
Okay.
thinking when David was talking about doing modifications that's really where that comes in.
Yeah. Like doing base work. Like that's more artistic than like anytime you're creating something, anytime you're adding something. Like if you're just taking the model, putting it together and painting it, like I don't, and this is again not to take anything away. Like technical execution is like it makes me slack-jawed when I see some people like the stuff they come up with. It's insane. But it's a technical execution. And this should be good. This should be a good thing for people to hear, because like people are I hear some people say like, oh, I'm not an artist, I've never been artistic, blah 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 blah. It's in my mind, it's not really about art. It's about getting the reps in. It's about getting the muscle memory. It's about developing a tool set and technically executing the paint job. It's like anything. Like that. Like if I went to a automotive like paint shop and I just started, I would suck at it. And there'd be guys who could like zip on paint and be like fucking wizards at it, but they're not like actually being artistic. They're just really good at technically executing a paint job on a car, right? So I think with more reps, everybody gets better.
So when you say that you need a tool set, what do you think is the most if what do you think is the most important tool that people who are trying to get better at their hobby should be focusing on?
I think it's, I mean, David said a wet palette. I think for a mini painter, a wet palette's pretty important. I think having a good brush, I don't think you need a lot of brushes, but having a good brush is pretty important. If you're trying to technically execute something, having a brush that's imperfect or flawed is just going to be a hindrance on your execution. Now, like someone who's really good could probably make it work, but trying to learn with like a flawed tool is just an exercise in frustration. I think kind of going hand in hand with that, I think like a diverse paint set is probably good. I think the better you are, the more you can come up with your own colors, like mixing and things. But starting out, it's harder to do that. So you kind of need more colors to get variation in your palettes. Like if you're building up a color, let's say green, you probably want at least 3 greens to go from like your low lights to highlights. Like you want a low, medium, high, right? And then you probably are blending in between with some sort of technique. And that's like minimum. So it's kind of weird. Like it feels like the better you get, the less you need. But like
Yeah.
this starting out, you kind of need a lot. And I was gonna say something, but I can't remember now. Ask me a question.
Well, I was going to ask, David, are there any tools or equipment that you found that are really indispensable to you, maybe that we haven't talked about, or some other things that that you found useful in your hobby?
Like I said, the wet palette.
Yeah.
I think you should get a good pair of sprue cutters. Like
Mm-hmm.
those
Yeah.
save so much
100%.
time.
Do not cut pieces off with a hobby knife. Please don't do that.
Yeah, you will like
The amount that you're
gouge.
spending on a box of minis is
Yeah.
like double the amount that you would spend on a good pair of sprue cutters. And the amount of time it takes you to fuck up your mini with trying to cut it off the sprue with a hobby knife is a very short amount of time.
Yeah, risk like cutting yourself.
Yeah.
Because like sometimes you just go through the piece and it's like, oh, the like this gives, and then like those knives are sharp. Like
They are sharp.
gouge
That's
your
true.
gouge your desk, gouge your finger. So yes, get a screw cutter. Those are
Alex,
fantastic.
how about you? Any additional kind of uh, gear that you have found to be really useful that we haven't discussed?
So things that we haven't discussed, and that is a physical piece of gear. No,
A
the
light.
tool and the what'd you say? What'd you say, JP? I didn't hear you.
Light is important.
Very
Oh yeah,
important.
light is
100%.
very important. I was gonna say patience. It is a
Oh
tool
yeah.
that people it really helps. JP mentioned this a little bit earlier about being like saying you're not artistic, and being artistic, like JP said, doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be good or bad at it. But what really helps is being patient. Knowing that you are new to a hobby like this and new to painting, you just got to have that patience. It may not be the way you want it or the way you think it's going to turn out originally, but getting those reps, going through and doing the technique over and over is goes hand in hand with patience, and just building that patience and having it really helps.
Yeah. The the two things that I've been using, one has been, and it seems real straightforward, but it has been a good brush soap. I have started getting into a habit after every time after every time I paint to I use Master's Hand, but there's a bunch of different other ones to wash the brushes out, hang them upside down, make sure you're not getting letting paint dry in the ferrule. And I will tell you, the brushes that I have used and the ones that I found to be that I like better have lasted way longer than they did before I started getting into that routine. The other thing that I have been using that has been really helpful for me, but I think that's just partly it's just the ravages of time, is I have a magnifying headset where um, using that, I can get into some of the details, painting eyes, painting stripes, painting little things that there's just a 0% chance that I would be able to do otherwise. So those are two things that I couldn't do without. Then the last thing for me is, and it's something, I mean, it's something that I kind of work with regardless, is just, you know, you're not, if you're working and looking at models with the intent of trying to be the best thing that anybody's ever seen, you're just dooming yourself to failure. Comparison's the thief of joy, and I have found much more satisfaction in the hobby when I've just been watching myself get better and trying different techniques, trying out new things. Uh, that's what makes the hobby work for me, is to kind of let go of looking at other people's stuff and saying, "Oh, well, mine sucks compared to that." That's not the criteria. The criteria is, how does that look compared to the last model that you did?
Yeah, that's really important. I think for I've been hobbying for off and on since high school, and for most of it, it's weird. Like, I'll in the moment I'll like what I did, and then I'll go back and look at it, like whatever, a day, a week, a month later, like, man, I don't like what I did anymore. And that's probably from comparing it to other stuff that I've seen. Because like the internet's a big place, right? You get to just see all the best stuff in the world. Luckily, I feel like I've gotten to a place where I don't hate my stuff anymore. Obviously, I can identify hundreds of other people who do it better than me, but I don't look at it was a problem for me for a long time. I'd look at my stuff and be like, man, that thing sucks now. But I don't hate my stuff now if I take my time on it.
Yeah.
I guess that kind of goes into another thing I wanted to talk about. With there's kind of like a life hobby balance, right? Like, if you had an infinite amount of time, you could paint these things theoretically, right? You took a number of years or whatever to develop a skill set to be able to do all this stuff and paint like a beast, but some people just don't have all the time in the world to do it. So it's kind of striking a balance, and that's going to be different for everybody. When I hopped into MCP, it was 2021, I want to say.
Yep.
So there was already like, I don't know, 60 to 80 models maybe already out. So I was kind of I was slow out the gate, and I felt an imperative to kind of get things painted. So I imposed kind of a rule on myself where I think when I first started, I was like, I want to get this done in 3 to 4 hours or something like that. So every model I was painting, I was doing in 3 to 4 hours. And going back and looking at those things, the models I painted, definitely I'm seeing like a lot of areas for improvement. These days, I am kind of just painting things at my leisure and kind of painting them to where I can say good enough, which is going to be different for everybody. But for me, it's kind of like where I think my skill is kind of capping out, and I'm not getting like a ton of diminishing returns, trying to do something to improve it while also risking messing it up. And typically that's like a good value proposition for time for me anymore is like maybe like 10 hours per model or something like that. It's where I feel like I've gotten it to a really good point, but any extra time would probably be spent on something else, just for the sake of sanity and like getting things done.
Go ahead, JP.
I guess I'm going long-winded with it, but I had some ideas while you were talking.
Okay.
The other thing is prep. Like, prep is important to me. If I'm gonna drop $40 on a box for 2 models, like, I want them to be like prepped for painting. So like nothing's more distracting from a good paint job than like poor prep. So if there's a lot of like mold lines or gaps or something, like it's distracting from a good paint job. So I like to spend time prepping. That's like removing the mold lines, filling gaps, etc., etc. And you need tools for that too. So like sprue glue is kind of a big one, like sanding sticks, stuff like that, just to get your surfaces even, and like you want to use like a thin plastic cement for a lot of things, I think, in my opinion. I think super glue has a place, but I think some hobbyers overuse it and it might be impeding their final product just because it's super glue is kind of hard to manage once you get it down. Like trying to remove excess super glue is difficult.
Mhm.
And if you don't, then it can kind of ball up and just make these like weird looking artifacts on your model.
Sure. Make it look like
Um,
cancer.
what's up?
Make it look like cancer.
Yeah, right.
Pre-cancer.
Got
Yeah.
this lump growing out from my shoulder.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe that's the
I-
look you're going for.
Yeah. Just paint Nurgle all the time.
Yeah.
Listen, you got to have a reason for your Deadpool to be Deadpool.
There you go.
True.
Ooh, well played.
They didn't
I
give
know,
us a
I'm a little proud of that one.
That's
didn't give
very
us a
well done.
they didn't give us a maskless Wade though.
I know.
That's true.
Sad. I guess the last thing I would say is that to get better, you need to probably fuck things up. So
Yes.
you need to be willing to take risks and ruin things. And it's a process. Like if you're really intent on getting better, you just need to keep trying to push yourself and taking risks. Like it feels real bad when you've been spending hours on something and then you go through some technique or process and you just totally botch the whole thing to where you either need to strip it or throw it in the trash can, but you learn things from that. And like if you're intent on staying in the hobby, maybe not MCP, but just the hobby in general for a long time, like you need to go through those things or you'll just get kind of stuck in a way of doing things that isn't really pushing your skill sets.
That's where I was, that's for sure. Um, David, kind of any last hobby thoughts, or if is there a model or a project that you're either working on now or you're excited to be working on?
I mean, I'm just painting X-Men. I think I'm getting in. I'm pretty much finished with Nightcrawler. Uh, but yeah, I'm just like trying to get into Psylocke. I already started putting some paint on her, but life, right? Sometimes you're like, oh, I have time, and then you're like, oh, maybe I didn't have time to do that.
How about you, Alex? Any kind of last hobby thoughts, or what your project that you're working on is?
I talked a little bit about what's currently on my painting table. The next one I'm excited for, I got a bunch of 3D prints from one of our locals, Tom, of alternate costumes or like versions of some of the horseman models in Servants of Apocalypse. So I'm excited to get those painted up. I've got a Magic, I've got a Colossus, Wolverine, and a model I'm going to use for Psylocke. So I'm excited to get those done.
How about you, JP? What's your next project?
I've been playing APOC for a couple months now, so I was slowly kind of painting that list. Like, I can't even say that list. I painted APOC for it, and I had some stuff painted already. I'm trying to figure out when I'm taking to LVO. That's kind of what the imperative is right now, and it's going to dictate what I'm painting because I only have a little over a month to figure out what I'm doing. Well, I only have a little over a month to where I'm actually playing at the event, so I need to figure it out quickly and then start getting painted because I don't have any lists I want to play right now. I definitely have some things that are unpainted. So, I directly before APOC, I was painting Namor and I almost got him done, but I switched over to painting servants. So we'll see. I got to figure something out soon, but it'll definitely be paint crunchy time within a week or so.
My current project list shows that I'm a big fat liar because I have kind of been fascinated with terrain lately. For reasons known to nobody, I bought the Tomb of Dracula and I've got that thing staring at me that I want to work on. And I've just kind of been fascinated with putting different tables together. I bought a bunch of stuff off of either eBay or Etsy, and I have like a Halloween themed table that I got put together that I really like. I have a Christmas themed table that I have put together. That's been more of my focus now than actually painting models, which means that the list I want to play right now has about 8 unpainted models that I really just need to buckle down and get painted. So, webheads, we'd like to hear your hobby thoughts too. So, what are you working on? What do you like to do? How's things working for you? We're gonna wrap this up. We've run a little long to start with, which is seeming to be on brand for us. But we'll be back. We next time we come back, we are gonna have a holiday extravaganza episode for you. So that'll be something for you to look forward to. Please, if you would, the single best thing you can do to help us out is to rate and review us on your podcatcher of choice. That really makes a difference in terms of having people being able to find us. You can also follow us at all the socials at Witty Bantercast. You can email us at wittybantercast@gmail.com. And you can help support us at patreon.com/wittybantercast. Otherwise, thanks for listening, webheads, and be good.